Story 1. The moment I noticed I was the only one trying to fix things. Story 2. Being promised something, even if small, and then not following through shows me that they are completely unreliable even for small things. Story 3. She admitted without remorse to heavily bullying a neighbor for a few years in her youth. I couldn't see her the same way after that. Story 4. No consideration for my health and weaponized incompetence. Story 5. Little to no compliments. He wasn't very expressive. When you're excited about something or think something is very cool and share it, he had no reaction. If he found it interesting, he would still respond with just a monotonous nice. If he didn't find it exciting or cool, he would say, "Well, I don't think it's exciting or cool." He would just stare blankly. It made me stop sharing things that excited me. Story 6. They would come over and leave trash everywhere. Empty soda bottles, snacks they bought, and so on. They never picked up after themselves. Every time they left, I would spend about 20 minutes cleaning up after them. They knew where the trash bin was but did not bother to put anything in it. Story 7. When I tried having a conversation with him about my concerns regarding my rapid weight loss, he told me I sounded like a broken record and that if I wanted to gain weight, I just needed to eat more chicken. It was his dismissiveness of my concerns that affected me the most. Story 8. They watched too much Seinfeld, almost continuously from when they finished work until we went to bed. I like Seinfeld, but this was excessive. Story 9. I was just tired. I was tired of being the one initiating things, of coming up with plans, and of carrying conversations. It is one of those things a person does not notice until they have sat alone with their own thoughts for a day or two. Story 10. I once ended a friendship because he said he did not believe the minimum wage should be increased. Story 11. He told me it was none of my business when I asked who he was talking to on the phone. We were not in a fight. It was just a casual question I asked after a long day of not seeing or talking to each other. Story 12. Enmeshment. When my partner said, I had to ask my mother first before doing something. Story 13. In my house, doing the dishwasher meant you emptied the clean dishes, then put all the dishes in the sink into the dishwasher. My ex-husband would just empty it. After a while of saying, "Hey, can you load the dishwasher?" I finally asked why he didn't just load it after he emptied it, because he had to realize that I asked him every time he emptied it. His response was, "I don't load it because then I'm doing more than 50% of the work." That's when I realized that even though I always put my stuff right in the dishwasher after I used it, he was not. He was just putting his dishes and utensils in the sink because, in his mind, the division of labor was I load the dishwasher and he empties it. Except that I unloaded and reloaded the dishwasher about 4 times for every one time I asked him to do it. It was not the reason we got divorced, but it did not help either. Story 14. Not asking how my day was after I asked them how theirs was. Story 15. Realizing she was in it for the money despite me telling her countless times I have no money. Story 16. He asked me to massage him, and I gave him a full back and shoulder massage for about 15 minutes, being very loving and giving kisses in between. Afterwards, I asked him to massage my shoulders. His response was, "Why do you deserve a massage?" His reason was that he pays for everything and I don't need to lift a finger, so I don't deserve a 5-minute shoulder rub from him at the end of the day. Story 17. When they demanded an apology for my behavior, they did not see anything wrong when they did the exact same thing. Story 18. Kept accusing me of cheating. It got to the point where I was considering actually doing it. I ended up ending it because I quite literally do not understand the concept of cheating. Just leave. Story 19. After dating someone for over 5 months, I had never met any of their friends or family, except for one roommate for a few minutes. The person said they did not use social media much, so they did not friend me, but they actually posted many times a day. They occasionally used the word friend when referring to me. The person was also uninterested in my life milestones and did not come to my graduation or moving day. I hired movers but would have appreciated emotional support. Someone that uninterested in being part of my life or allowing me to be part of theirs made me stop dating that person. Story 20. My point of view is do not end a relationship because of little things. When you are in a relationship, you have to adjust to little things to continue the relationship. Story 21. He was enmeshed with his mother. She would hear about his day before I did, and then he would not want to talk to me once he got home. Story 22. Someone with a severe pornography addiction, abuse, empty promises, and other negative behaviors. Story 23. We have lived under the same roof for 3 years, yet he still does not find his way around the kitchen. Story 24. Lots of little things, but in the end, lying and gaslighting me repeatedly for 18 months over something insignificant, and insisting he was telling the truth until I had to literally force it out of him. I realized he would never be truthful about anything if it compromised his comfort in any way. Story 25. He tripped and fell, and his private part accidentally landed in her crotch. Story 26. Spitting. I can tolerate a lot of grossness, but for some reason, not spit. Story 27. She has borderline personality disorder. It is extremely challenging for both her and me. Story 28. I'm an older woman, and my friend was smothering me. Of course, not literally. I am a traveler all over the world, always looking for my next trip, and he would make comments about me not going. Plus, my phone blew up 4 to 6 times a day with him calling me. It got to the point where I didn't even want to answer. Story 29. When our relationship became long distance, he seemed to have forgotten my existence. Story 30. Her male friend would follow me at school with a group of people, threatening me. She would emphasize he is important to her. That was the end. Story 31. When he chewed so loudly, I could hear it over the music in a club. Story 32. Not respecting my boundaries. I was a 23-year-old virgin, and after a few months of dating, he kept hinting at sex. I was firm in my decision to wait until marriage. Later that year, I had a trip to Europe planned with my mother, and he was worried I would be unfaithful. Eventually, I had enough, and he started annoying me with every interaction. So I ended the relationship. Best decision ever. Story 33. I asked him about his plan for his future, and he said he still wanted to work at his unproductive job. He showed no drive to succeed or advance his career. Story 34. My ex and I worked at the same place where we met for a year. She got a new job at a catering company. On the first day when I got home, she said, "You know, you should get a real job, as opposed to the imaginary job I wake up and go to every day for 42 hours a week." Was it not a real job when she worked there? Good game, no rematch, and I left there. Story 35. Eating like a starving animal at every meal. Turned my stomach. Story 36. Saying something serious and getting hit with, "Wait, what?" Story 37. It sounds shallow, but I had a few dates over a couple of weeks with a girl I was seeing. When it came time to be intimate, we undressed, and she had no curve in the buttocks, like none at all. I continued seeing her for another week, but it was off-putting. I couldn't do it. Her buttocks were just flat, with a small crease in between, as if she had sat on a pencil. I prefer a fuller shape. I need something to hold on to at night. Story 38. Chuckling and saying it made them want to start a new civilization game while watching Israel and Palestine news coverage. If you can see that and your only reaction is, "Hee hee, this is just like my game," then you are not mature enough to be in an adult relationship. Story 39. What made me want to end it and what actually made me end it are two different things, unfortunately. I've had partners parade me around like a prize pony because of my looks. I've had the same issue my whole life. People talking about my hair, my body, and my face like I'm a pet. Using me for attention, using me to get praise from their friends. It's frustrating. Back when I had twin braids all the time, one of my ex-boyfriend's friends asked if he pulled on them during sex and actually made a handlebar motion with his hands. I was sitting right there. I had another ex who used me to get into sex parties and clubs, and then threw a fit when I said I'd go with him but wouldn't participate. I had another ex who would obsess endlessly about the color of my intimate areas. Coupled with constantly being talked over and ignored, it's dehumanizing. Even my ex-girlfriend mocked me for not showing more skin. What the heck? I'm talking to someone right now who has a huge crush on me, and he keeps complimenting my looks. I don't know how to articulate how it makes me feel without angry crying because most people would probably enjoy the attention. Sorry, this is probably a huge block, but I just had to put this somewhere. I'm tired, boss. Story 40. I had to schedule everything and constantly chase her down to get her to respond to me. Story 41. This was the end of high school and early college years, not a very long relationship. It burned bright for a short time. I had a weekly game night with my brothers and friends, usually from 5 p.m. to midnight on Tuesdays or something like that. Every single time, she would call me just to chat, to see what was up and to say she missed me. This was before texting. After a couple of times, I asked her if we could talk before game time instead of being interrupted. That happened for 2 weeks. Then the calls at 7 or 8 p.m. started again. After a while, I got frustrated and simply turned off my cell phone, an old StarTAC flip phone. Naturally, she was angry the next day when I talked to her. I guess overall insecurity is not a small thing. Of all the ways she expressed her insecurity, that was the one that stood out the most, especially since she knew exactly where and with whom I was. I think it was a bit mutual when we ended things, but from my perspective, her insecurity was a deal breaker. Years later, I bumped into her randomly while out one night with friends, and she took the time to apologize for how she acted when we were dating. She was indeed very insecure at that time. Story 42. This is about a friend of mine and it has always stayed with me. He and his girlfriend lived together and had the same neighbors for a long time. They knew their neighbors quite well. One night, they had their neighbors over for drinks on their back patio. One of the neighbors wanted to go inside for another beer or to use the restroom, but the door was locked. My friend quietly told them the key code to get in. After the neighbors went home, my friend's girlfriend mentioned that they would need to change the key code since at least one of their neighbors had it. My friend said that, based on his girlfriend's level of distrust, he considered that the final straw and knew the relationship was over. Story 43. When the relationship became long distance, he seemed to have forgotten my existence. Story 44. They share everything they do online and do not like phone calls. Story 45. Sister's jealousy and triangulation manipulation. I thought I was strong enough to deal with it, but then I imagined her trying to give a speech about me at the wedding. That imagination gave me all the closure I needed. Story 46. The small realization was that in 2 years, he never told me about or introduced me to his friends. We attended separate colleges, so I did not think much of it at first. However, once when we ran into a couple of his friends, he visibly panicked. His friends did not know he had a girlfriend. The major realization was that if I married him, I would have a marriage like my parents. That thought filled me with so much dread that I started planning how to break up with him. It was the best decision I ever made. Story 47. When I found out she had slept with her best female friend and would continue to make jokes about it even though it was in the past. Story 48. He called me a nickname I hated and I had told him more than once not to use it. Story 49. We discussed whether African American slaves had their religion stripped and replaced with Christianity. He argued that most slaves were Christian and brought that religion with them to the West. I argued that the majority had tribal African religions that they were violently forced to abandon in order to follow Christianity. He based his argument on being African, suggesting he would know. Story 50. Mama's boys. They don't have your back and are definitely not providers. If the mom is not a feminist, then run. I dated a black boy. We paid bills 50-50, cleaned, cooked, and went to school. It was too much. If he complained about not having money, he would call out all the time. The mom would fuel even more, asking, "Is she not helping financially?" It was the worst relationship. Daddy issues were involved too. Story 51. When I was in high school, I had an ex who wanted to get back with me but never respected that I didn't want to be in a relationship. Instead of leaving me alone, he kept texting me from a fake number and impersonated his mom to guilt-trip me for something I didn't do. When I had to return his stuff, I called his mom and she told me she was never the one who sent those messages. I don't know if he even realizes that I know what he did was wrong, but he and his friend are telling people that I'm the crazy one, obsessed and all over him. To this day, I assume he is still trying to find a way to text me, even though he has a girlfriend. Story 52. I had to end a friendship for a number of reasons, but one that stands out to me is how she would basically perform emotions. Instead of communicating her feelings or needs like a reasonable adult, she would perform an emotion to elicit the reaction she wanted. Was I not being sympathetic enough? Her despair would literally have her swooning on the ground. Whenever she tried to fend off criticism by others, sometimes real, mostly perceived, she would get this exhausted, half-masked look as though someone's words were literally sucking the marrow from her bones. If I told her my feelings were hurt by something she did, she would pull a guilty or sorry face and talk softly. But my attempt to discuss the actual issue in detail would make her mad. As you might have guessed, her performances usually cropped up when she needed something or wanted to avoid some kind of blame. It was undoubtedly a trauma issue, but it was impossible to actually try to address problems when she acted like my attempts to work things out with actual accountability were literally hurting her. Story 53. We had a paint night with our friends, and he painted the word dicks on a piece of wood with small drawings around it. I am a lesbian now. Story 54. We had this thing for a little while where we were trying to connect over lessons we would learn in church. She went to a different church from me, so I developed the habit of writing notes on my phone and then sending her the note file after church. Even though she said she really enjoyed receiving my notes, she never sent me any of hers. English is not her first language, so I went along with it for about a month and a half. I thought maybe she wasn't confident enough with English to feel comfortable sharing her notes, but after a month, I concluded that she simply did not want to. I'm not sure why she expected me to put in that effort, but you know. Story 55. She told me she resented me when I asked for repair regarding some of the behaviors that hurt me. Story 56. When she said she wanted me to open up so we could fix things, I did. The only responses she gave were trying to guilt me into shutting up and telling me, "Why don't you just leave then? You cannot tell me you want to work on the relationship, then get defensive when I have an opinion or emotions." Story 57. The small disrespectful things that add up. Walking slowly in front of me, questions and comments that are unnecessary and subtly insulting, stopped being kind to me. Story 58. My ex had severe anxiety and struggled with interpersonal relationships. She had no friends and was taking multiple medications that made her more withdrawn. She was jealous and mocked me for my business success. Story 59. She freaked out over me playing World of Warcraft with my friends, experiencing a full-blown nuclear meltdown. Story 60. She boiled the eggs I asked her to fry and fried the ones I asked her to boil. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.